is. Oh my goodness, that is huge. I definitely think this would be a great coffee table tray.
So I was really excited about this tray and how big it was, so I decided to use ink by Waverly, and I'm going to come in and just do one coat. I'm going to be painting the outside edges because I'm going to put something down in the middle. The last time I was shopping at IKEA, I found this really awesome rug, and I'm going to be using that as the base to my tray. So I'm going to start by just cutting off all that fringe because I don't want to use that. Next, I'll cut off the edge wherever like the white thread is holding it in place. And then I'm simply going to measure how long I want it to be. I want it to fit perfectly into my tray. So I'll measure and cut. I'm going to repeat those steps on the opposite side as well. Now to attach the rug, I'm just going to simply use some hot glue and push it down in place. Now to cover up the frayed edges on the side, I went through and pulled off some pieces of yarn, and I'm simply going to hot glue those down just to create a border. Whenever you do this, make sure you don't add too much hot glue, otherwise you're gonna see the hot glue along the edge. So you just want a little bit of hot glue, and it finishes off the edges really nicely. And I love the way that this tray turned out. I think it looks so nice sitting out with some decor that I had around my house.
I love this little wood side table. This is going to make a great DIY project and a great little table. They have $15 on it, and I'm pretty sure it's solid wood because it's pretty heavy.
I was really excited to get this side table for $15, and I knew that I wanted to update it so it had more of a natural finish. Well, in order to do that, I had to get off all of the stain that was on there. So I grabbed my orbital sander, and I'm also going to be using 80 grit sandpaper to really get off that finish. This took me a while to do. I did take a couple of breaks. I think one of the hardest parts about sanding this piece was just the fact that there was a lot of ridges on the side. So I kind of had to move the sander until it worked the way I wanted it to. And I wanted all of the staining off there. So I really had to, work at it until I got it all done. Now, since I just stained this, I didn't want to put any stain on there that was going to change the color. So the stain I'm going to be using is called Natural, which basically it's just a sealer to put on your wood. So I took one of my foam brushes. I'm just going to do one coat of stain over the entire piece. Any excess stain, I'll come back in with a cloth and wipe it off. And for $15, I have a modern looking side table that's way more updated.
So I always look at the clocks as well in the wood items, and they have several options today. I really like this one, and I have a great DIY option. So I'm gonna grab this one. It is $3.99. So this project is inspired by all of the concrete clocks that I've been seeing lately, and I wanted to create my own. So I'm just gonna start by unscrewing all of the components. I wasn't really sure, what I was getting into, but basically there was 3 layers of screws that I had to remove, but it was no big deal.
I separated all the pieces and I even unscrewed the glass that was in the front of the clock. I'm also going to be removing the clock hands. Now to start this off, I'm going to be using Quikrete. I just have a tiny bit left, so I didn't need a lot for this project. So I'm going to mix some Quikrete that you can buy at Home Depot, Lowe's, anywhere, with a little bit of water. You want this to be like a thick pudding consistency. Then I'm going to start by just taking that Quikrete and I'm going to put it directly onto the clock face. I'm going to use a foam brush to spread the Quikrete around, and I'll just let that dry. With the outer portion of my clock, I'm going to paint it with 2 coats of ink by Waverly. Once the concrete had a chance to dry, I'm going to add the clock hands back on. Then I will put the outer portion on as well and screw that back in place. And here's a look at how this clock turned out. The next thing I found was this little set of, they look like brass, but they're not, little owls. They're made of some sort of metal, and they were priced at $1.50 each. I know I bought them half price, so ended up spending $2.25 for all of them. So the way I'm gonna paint these, I did something very similar in the fall with an owl from Dollar Tree. I'm just going to paint them white, and they have this really cool gold and black already on them. So I'm going to do 1 coat of white and let that dry. Then I'm going to get a paper towel completely wet and I'll wring it out. And then I'm going to come back in wet distress. Why I love doing this is going to bring back all the really cool detail in the owl, and it's going to look really neat. And I'm going to do that with all 3 of them. Now these do have little hangers on the back where I could hang them up, but I'm just going to set them out, and I think they look adorable. They're like whimsical. You can find things like this in the thrift store, but it's a great way to kind of update it. I was so excited when I came across this old accordion organizing, I guess they're called hangers, for only $3.50. These are very in right now. I have a couple in my house, so I had to pick it up. So my idea for this is I went to Walmart and I bought a wood burning tool. Now I've never used this before, so I was kind of experimenting with it on this little board. I do recommend doing that. You also have to be so careful whenever you're using this because it is super hot. So I started on one side, just kind of adding in some lines and some dots. And I did that, nothing too crazy. Then I decided to have fun and experiment. So I changed out the tool and added this little teardrop shape, which I thought was pretty cool. In the end, I think this turned out really cool. It's super subtle, but I think it looks great. So you guys know that I can't pass up a really good vase. I found this one. This one was $5 half price, so it was $2.50. And the thing I really liked about this vase is it already has like really cool texture, plus it's a really fun shape. So what I decided to do with this one was spray paint it a combination of a flat black and also like a gray color. So I kind of just intermixed the 2 colors. Now with this spray paint, I really wasn't even that concerned that it covered it completely. I kind of like how it's not perfect and it's kind of has that multicolor look. And I think in the end, it turned out great.
All right, I'm loving this lamp right here. Look at the base of that one. The shade looks to be like perfect, and I definitely could update the base of this. Now they do have two, but do I get both? I don't know. I may only need one of them. Okay, I'm gonna get just one. I think this one's the better one, so I'm gonna grab this one. Ooh, I'm excited about this one. So this lamp definitely was reminding me of a shape I saw of a lamp on the Anthropologie website. So I wanted to give it kind of a more neutral, natural look. So I came in with a tan flat spray paint, and I'm just gonna be spray painting the top half of the lamp. Next, I'm gonna take a piece of shelf liner because it's something I had laying around, and I'm gonna dab the brown and caramel color all over the top half of this lampshade. And I'm trying to make it look really textured and wood-like. Next, I'm going to come in with Waverly White chalk paint, and I'm going to paint the bottom half. Now I'm going to take a Dollar Tree sack, and this is kind of like an older technique. I'm gonna dab the paint on with the Dollar Tree sack just to make kind of a fun transition between the two colors. I'm also going to spray paint the top of this lamp white, and then I'll put it back together. And here's a look at how this lamp turned out. You guys, glassware at the thrift store is such a good buy, and I love the shape of this little vase right here. It's only 50 cents, but I just think that would be such a pretty jar sitting out. So I'm gonna take this little 50-cent container, I'm gonna spray paint it with 2 coats of a matte black spray paint. The spray paint I like is the Rust-Oleum spray paint that you can pick up at Walmart. I'm gonna let this completely dry. Once it's dry, I'm gonna be going in with this little chalk marker that you can get at Dollar Tree, and I decided to create a little 3-dot triangle. This was so easy to do. I didn't plan it out. I just kind of free-handed it all around the dish. You could set this out to put your keys in. You could also put a little succulent in it. I just think it's a really cute little dish and cost me next to nothing. So another great deal is office supplies and organizers. I always look for organizers. This magazine holder is only $1 and would make a great organizer. I don't even think it needs anything done to it. I love this little magazine holder. I didn't have to do much to it at all. I just cleaned it up a little bit, and then I'm gonna take the little label in the front and write in what I'm gonna put in this container, which is my cardstock. And how gorgeous is this organizer for only $1? So next up are these hoops, you guys. So I was at the thrift store and they brought these out, and I was like, give them all to me. I was so excited about them. Let's see, the larger ones, they have priced at $4, and I'm pretty sure, maybe they were half off. I may have paid $4 for them, I don't know. The smaller ones, they have priced at $3. But when, like this one right here is a 23-inch hoop. So I saw these, I thought they would make awesome wall art. So I picked them up. I have 5 of them. So my idea was I wanted something that I could hang up in my bathroom.
So the next thing I did was I went to the scarf section to look for some like cream and white colored fabric. So I found some different selections. My thrift store also has a little bin where they say it's like $1 for vintage lace. So I was able to find a couple of like vintagey lace pieces. So to do this project, it's gonna be really simple. And the cool thing about it is I can change this out if I, wanna do something different. But I'm just going to take the fabric and put it in the hoop like I would if I was doing a project with it. I'll cut off any excess that I don't want. You can cut it off completely or leave a little bit depending on what look you're going for. And then I'm just going to simply hang this on the wall. Now, if you wanted to replicate this project, you can totally buy hoops like this at Walmart. I don't know if you can get them this big. You may have to go to a sewing store or Hobby Lobby or something to get one this large. I was really excited to find these. These were probably my favorite find. So I grabbed this basket and I don't know if I was busy just like filming and not paying attention to what I was doing, but I didn't realize that this basket had roses on one side of it. I mean, this basket was kind of in bad shape, but I figured, you know what? This is okay. I'm gonna show you guys how you could update this basket and make it look completely new. The first thing I did was just kind of clean it up a little bit. A lot of times baskets, what I like to do is just kind of run them under water and let them air dry just to kind of get all the dust off of them. Next, I came in with my screwdriver and I just tried to pop off these roses as gently as possible. They were glued on there, but there was not any extra residue. Next, I had to make some repairs. So I'm just going to take where the weaving has come off and weave it back through the basket and hot glue it in place. This is really easy to do, and sometimes baskets just have a little minor repair that they need done, which is kind of what I thought this basket was gonna be, but it ended up being more. So next I needed to stain where those roses were. So I went into my stains and found one that I felt like, was a similar dark color. I'm just going to wipe it, or just going to brush it on, and immediately I wiped off the excess because I was worried that it could be too dark. It ended up, blending in really well. So I just did that on the area where the roses were. And then I went along the edges where I felt like the stain had kind of, taken off over the years, just to kind of freshen it up a little bit. I didn't do it over the whole piece, just in some areas. Now, what I like to do with baskets like this is, again, style them on my coffee table. So here's a look at how this basket turned out and how you can style it. I hope this gives you a great idea how you can take something you already have, possibly on hand, and really create it into the piece that you want it to be.
All right, I love this little piece, and it's like a little canister type thing. So I think I'm gonna grab this.
It took me a while to decide what to do with this canister, so I'm gonna start off by painting the entire piece with Waverly white chalk paint. Next, I'm going to be using some of this nautical rope from Dollar Tree. You can pick it up at most Dollar Trees. I'm gonna start by taking the nautical rope, and I'm gonna start at the bottom, adding some hot glue, and I'm gonna be twisting it around the edges.
I'm gonna add about 2 pieces all the way up. Next, I'm going to take that same nautical rope and I'm going to untwist it. It comes with 3 strands that are twisted together. So I'm going to try to remove one of the smaller strands, and then I'm going to start hot gluing a smaller strand up just to kind of give it a variation in the look of it. In one of my previous videos, I used the same grass that I have outside. This is what the grass looks like in the winter, and I'm gonna be using that to fill up my container.
All right, so I'm over in the chair section and I found this antique chair, but it's got like this really cool side to it, and I just think I need to get this.
This chair really needed to be updated. It had a lot of water damage and stains, so I came in with my orbital sander and I'm just going to take it down so it's nice, clean, and ready to be resanded. After I was done with the orbital sander, I came in and used just a hand sander to get in the spindles where I wasn't able to get them completely, as well as like in between the spindles. I'm going to be using this early American stain for this project. I picked it up at Home Depot, and I'm just going to wipe on one coat. As I put the coats on, I'm going to immediately pull it off with a rag. I don't want the stain to be on there too long at all. And I'm going to stain the entire piece. So after I stained everything, I realized that the piece just looked a little too perfect. So I decided to come back in with my orbital sander and pull off some of the stain to give it a more distressed look. So it's kind of a stain distressing look. In the end, I think this chair and the vase look so great together in my hallway.
So here is some of the glassware at the thrift store. What really stood out to me was this piece right here. It's $2 and it has this really cute lid. So we're gonna go ahead and pick that up and do a DIY with it.
This next project is really simple. You could probably do it with anything that you already have at your home. I'm gonna start by just cleaning the jar off, and then I'm gonna create a fun tassel. I'm gonna use this Dollar Tree yarn that I already had on hand, and I'm gonna cut off a long piece that's going to fit around the top of my jar. Then I grabbed just a piece of cardboard that I had that was about 4 inches long, and I started wrapping my tassel around till I wrapped it around about 40 times, I think. Next, I'm going to cut off the bottom, and I'm going to take some clear hair ties and I'm going to wrap them around, holding in that longer piece that I had to put on my jar. And this is just going to hold everything in place. Then I'm going to take an additional piece of green yarn on the back, and I'm just going to wrap it around. Now this varies depending on the project that I'm doing. Sometimes I wrap it around a couple, sometimes I go like 10 or 10 times. So it just kind of depends on the look that you're going for your tassel. Then hot glue it to the back, cut off the excess. I like to trim it down so the ends of the tassels are as even as possible. I was imagining this in my bathroom. I thought it would be great sitting out with cotton balls.
All right, so I'm over looking at the picture frames. I like this one. I like the size of it. It's $8. The frame could definitely use painting. The thing that I really like about it is the size, and then it also has a nice mat that I can use. The white mat is in good shape, and I have an idea for it. So now that I have the frame, I want to find a piece of fabric that is interesting that I can put in my frame. So I'm at Savers right now. They have a ton of different fabrics to choose from. So I'll see if I can find anything. I think I found the perfect piece of fabric for a frame. It's white and yellow. I could always dye it to a different color, and it's $2.99.
My first step was to remove all the components of this massive frame. I thought I got a great deal on it for $8. So I'm taking off the backing, and then I'm also going to take out the picture as well as the glass. Next, I'm going to be painting my frame. Now, I started with a color called Mineral. I actually painted 2 coats with this, and in the end, I felt like it was too gray for what I was going for. And I actually went back and repainted this with a color called Fawn. That happens sometimes. Sometimes I paint it and it's just not the right color, but I was really glad that I went back and, made the change. Next, I'm going to be using some craft paper that you can pick up at Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to put this down as a barrier for my piece. And I'm going to cut off any excess. I'm just gluing this directly to the previous picture that was on there. The reason I'm using the craft paper is because the fabric I'm using is see-through. I decided to stick with the color of it. Yellow is really in right now, so I wanted to use that same color. So I'm just going to be using painter's tape to wrap it around the edge. The hard part here was just trying to make sure that I got it as even as possible. I'm gonna put all of the components back in, making sure it's really clean before I lay it down. Next, I'm going to add in my mat, and then I'm going to add in the backing. Here you can see I went back in with that fawn color. This is just more of a brown color, and it actually is kind of a taupe color. And I thought it played really nicely with the brown in the background of that craft paper. I ended up adding a little bit of brown to deepen the color a little bit, but that's what I love to do. I love mixing colors until I have what I'm going for. I put everything back in once again, but really it was totally worth it. And in the end, this turned out so nice. This project cost me under $15, and I think it looks awesome.
All right, you guys, I love this plate. There's like a smaller size, so I'm wondering if I got this and maybe a smaller one, and I found something to make a little tray. That would be so pretty. All right, so I'm gonna go to the candle section and see if I can find something to make like a good base in between the 2 plates.
I love putting together a tray because it's such a quick and easy DIY. So I'm gonna add some E6000 to the bottom half of my glass, and then I'll put some on the top as well, and then add the smaller plate. I'm gonna let this completely dry, and this is a gorgeous tray that I put together.
So I'm definitely drawn to the wood items right now. I love this little bowl for $1.50. Definitely needs some work, but I think we could bring it back to life.
So I'm going to start by sanding this bowl. There was some black marks on it, so I wanted to make sure I got off most of the black marks before I continued. I also went to Hobby Lobby and grabbed a fine tip paint pen. I didn't have one that was a fine tip, so I wanted something that was a fine tip for this project. I also grabbed one in white. For this bowl, I wanted to add some fun geometric shapes, nothing too difficult. So I started by just adding a row of X's across this bowl, and this paint pen worked perfectly for this project. Then I just had fun with it. I went in and added some squares, and then I put some triangles on top and created some lines, did some more different geometric patterns, and I kept adding until I liked the way it looked and enjoyed the final look. And in the end, this was just like really quick and fun project to do, and I love the way it turned out. Now, tip 3, I know that I've mentioned in a previous video, and it's about buying larger items. Larger items at the thrift store give you the most bang for your buck whenever you're shopping at the thrift store. So look for larger items you can incorporate into your home, or maybe items that you could repurpose or do a DIY with.
I really like this coffee table. It's kind of like a butcher block. They want $50 for it. I think if it was completely sanded down and the polyurethane would be removed, it would make a really cool contemporary coffee table. All right, you guys, I just found a really good find. I never see globes at my thrift stores. I'm always on the lookout for them. It is really high priced. They want $15 for it, but I'm kind of in love. I love the size. I love that it's vintage, so I definitely think I'm gonna get it.
I picked up these 2 vases. This one is priced at $3, and this one does not have a price, so I'm assuming it was like $1 or $2. I thought they made a really cute grouping. So these really don't need much work done to them except for paint. So I picked up 2 spray paints at Walmart, and I'm simply just going to spray paint both of them with 2 coats of spray paint. Now to fill these, I have this tall grass that's kind of in its wintering stage out in my yard. So I went out and I just trimmed off this tall grass, and that's what I'm gonna be using to fill the vase. And I think these look so great sitting out. There's no need to spend full price on a vase like this when you can redo it so simply at the thrift store.
Every time I shop at the thrift store, I always check the frames. You can get such great deals on frames and create your own artwork, or you can put in pictures or whatever you want to do. The thrift store is definitely the way to go for frames. I found this really cute frame and I'm going to pick it up for an art project. So I started by spray painting the frame with a flat black spray paint. Once that had a chance to dry, I came back in with just some gold enamel paint. I'm going to use this enamel paint as a highlight. So I'm simply going to brush it around to the edges of my piece, and then I'm going to come back in and wipe it off with a paper towel. I don't want to have too much gold paint. I just want it to be a really subtle highlight. So I really wanted to do a joint compound wall art. So I grabbed a piece of foam board from Dollar Tree. Then I drew a line with a pencil to mark where the frame sat. Then I used some painter's tape to mark out where the edges would be so that I had a nice crisp line when it came to my wood filler. So this was my first time doing a project like this, so I did experiment with it. Now I went with a wood filler over like a plaster because I felt like the wood filler might be a lot stronger. The problem is it was a little too thick, so I actually had to come in with some water and mix some water with it. Once I did that, it was a lot more easy to manage and move the putty around. The other problem with with using this nail filler is it wasn't white. It didn't dry white. And so I did have to paint it with multiple colors. So I think if I was gonna do it again, I would probably use a plaster. So I'm just trying to get it smoothed out. Next, I just made a fun pattern with a putty knife just to give it a little bit more texture. Then I came in and I removed the painter's tape. The reason I added the painter's tape was to give me a nice crisp line around the edges, and I definitely like the look of that, so I would repeat that in the future. Now I gave this 24 hours to dry. Then I came back in with a matte spray paint, and I ended up doing, I believe, 3 coats to get this completely white. Then to attach it, I'm just going to hot glue it to my frame. And I love how this turned out. I put it with some other accessories in my hallway, and I just think it looks great. You'll have to let me know in the comments what you think of this. I know it's gonna be controversial, but let me know.
Love this little door. I'm not exactly sure what it was meant to be. It's priced at $3 and it's got some nice feet to it. I think it would make a nice tray.
So I love finding wood pieces that I can make really cool trays out of them. So I'm gonna grab some black paint by Waverly, and I ended up just doing 1 coat of paint on the outside of the tray. Since this was such a dark piece, I only needed 1 coat. Recently, when I was at IKEA, I found this rug for just a couple of dollars, and I thought it'd be great to put it in the middle of this tray. I did something similar in an IKEA video. You guys may have seen it, but I thought that would work perfectly for this tray. So I just cut off the edges, and then I ended up measuring out the sides, marking where I needed to cut because I wanted this rug to sit perfectly down in the middle of the tray. Once I got the rug cut out, I'm just going to hot glue it in place. So I didn't want to go out and purchase all new handles for this tray, so I was kind of rummaging around. I ended up finding these gold handles that we used last year in our RV makeover. And if you didn't know that I renovated an RV last year, if you go to my channel, type in RV, I have 5 videos on how we renovated the whole RV. So if you're interested in watching that. So I just marked up halfway up on the tray, and then I used a Sharpie to mark, and I made sure that both of the handles were going to be about 6 inches on either side. And then I came in with my drill. Once I did that, I realized that the bottom of the tray had some feet to it, so I had to unscrew those and take those off, but that was okay. Then I drilled holes to put my handles in, and I did that for both sides of the tray. These trays are perfect to set out on a coffee table, and it just gives a lot more interest to whatever decor you put on top of them. So here's a look at how the tray turned out.
I'm always a sucker for like a little tin when I go to the thrift store. I just really liked the shape of it, but I definitely wanted to add to it. So what I decided to do was get some of my plaster of Paris. I bought a big container of this on Amazon. I'll link it below for you, and it lasts forever. So if you get some of this, you'll definitely have it forever. I've done a ton of projects with it. So you just want to mix it with a little bit of water until you get like a paste consistency. I'm going to use gloves because I'm going to come in and actually use the gloves to put the plaster onto my container. And I want this to have a really old look. So I'm just going to be smearing the plaster around the edges. Now, I'm not concerned to cover the entire piece. In fact, I still want some of the original piece to show through, but it's just going to give it a really rough look. Next, I'm gonna come in and paint the piece. So I'm gonna be using Waverly white chalk paint, and this is just going to be just a fun personal preference kind of piece where I'm just painting it white. I felt like it needed a little bit of black. And whenever I'm like layering colors like this, I always just kind of build as I'm going. So I'm gonna add some black around the edges. I also had some gold paint that I decided to paint the handles, and I wanted the handles to be kind of a really prominent gold. So I used a more detailed brush to paint those gold. I did mute the gold down a little bit by mixing it with the black. And then I'm just going to add in colors until I like the way it looks. And here's how this planter turned out.
So I'm always looking for organization containers. I really love this container here, this wire container. I have a great organization idea for it.
So I'm going to start by spray painting this wire container with a white matte spray paint. I'm going to do one coat, flip it over, and then I'll do a second coat as well. My idea for this piece is to use it in a bathroom to store hot curling irons or a blow dryer that you don't want to put back in your cabinet and you need somewhere to store them. That's why I have this metal piece. So you can pick up command hooks off of Amazon and then simply put this wire basket on the command hooks. You can have your curling iron in there, and this is a great renter-friendly option.
I really like this container, not so much that it's clear, but I think we can use it. So I want to try to find a plate or something we can use to make this into a tray. I think I like this one the best. Let's see, I'm always doing this on the shelves at the store. That looks pretty good. And I think if we just update the color of the base, that would make a nice tray.
This is truly a 5-minute DIY. Take your white matte spray paint, do 2 coats of spray paint on here. Then you're gonna use some E6000 and you're gonna put your plate on top. This makes a perfect little cake plate, tray, stand, and so easy to do. And it costs me under $2.
I love this cute little magazine rack. There's so many fun DIYs you can do with these.
I've been looking for one of these magazine holders for a while, so I was really excited to find it. I started just by cleaning it up, then I went through and tightened all of the screws on it because they had definitely come loose. Next, I decided that I wanted to paint this. So I'm going to do 2 coats of just a Waverly white chalk paint. Now, whenever you're painting something like this with a lot of different, angles and stuff, it does take a while. So I like to use about a 2-inch brush for jobs like this.
I know that I told you we're over. I swear that I'm sober. Just listen,
I wanted to create a stencil to put on the front of this, so I went into my Cricut and found these really pretty flowers. I sized them down to be the size that would fit on the front of my magazine holder. And then I used some of Cricut's removable vinyl and I cut out the outer portion of this stencil. And then I went through, pulled out the inner portion because I don't need that portion because I just want the outline for a stencil. Then I'm going to peel my stencil off and I'm going to put it on the front portion of my magazine holder. And I'm going to repeat that with the other stencil on the other side. I like that they're a little bit different, but I think they go well together. And then I'm gonna use a color called Fawn, which I've been loving lately by Waverly. And I'm just gonna do one light coat and then I'll remove the stencil. The thing I love about these is they're really versatile. I mean, you can definitely put books in there, you could put magazines. Other great options would be to put towels in it in your bathroom. You could also organize shoes, like if you wanted to put it right by your front door. There's just a lot of great options for these. So if you see one of these at your thrift store, I definitely recommend picking it up.
So my thrift store has a big section of cutting boards, so I'm going to grab this one. It's $4. It needs a little work, so let's get it in DIY.
Start by using my orbital sander, and I'm gonna link the one that I use down below. I use this all the time, and I'm just going to go over this piece until I get all of that polyurethane and natural finish off of it. After I'm done sanding, I'm gonna wipe it down to get any dust or debris off of it. Next, I thought this would be cool to add in some fun handles. I picked up some really cute handles at Hobby Lobby. So I'm just going to find the center point and measure in 1 inch and then make it in the center. Then I'm gonna use my drill to create a hole. Make sure whenever you get handles at Hobby Lobby that you do on the 50% off day so it's not as expensive. Next, I'm just gonna add on the handles and put the little washer on the back. Now, since I put the washer on the back, this made this stand up a little bit. So to fix that problem, I'm going to add on some feet to the bottom just by adding in some wood beads that I had. All of the things I'm using will be linked down in the description box. I'm envisioning this tray sitting out on a table. It would also be great for a coffee table as well. So the first item I wanted to show you was this cool basket. It was priced at $3.50. I ended up picking it up for half off. I thought it was really cool and thought it would make a great hanging basket. So I went back and forth on whether or not I was going to paint it. In the end, I decided I was going to paint the wood. I painted the top and the bottom white by Waverly. I did 2 coats of paint. Next, I came back in and sanded it down so that it was distressed. One thing I found was this little purse, and I picked this up for $1. And the reason I bought it was for this little handle. I wanted my piece to have a handle to it. I'm actually going to take it and spray paint it white because it's kind of a fabric, so I wouldn't be able to chalk paint it very well. So I cut off the handle, and then I'm just going to attach the handle to the back with some hot glue. I'm going to add in some florals that I picked up at Hobby Lobby to finish off the piece. All right, you guys, so this next thing I've had now for at least a month or two. I was so excited to find this. It is a bread box. It's like one of the old ones, not like super old or anything, like probably like 70s or 80s. I spent $10.98 on it because these are really hard to find. I've looked for them all the time, and this was the first one that I've ever seen at a thrift store. I was excited to redo this. I really wanted to use something like this in my kitchen. So I wanted to paint this box that same Sherwin-Williams Argo color that I used, and it's not a chalk paint. So if you're using like a regular paint or like a house paint, you have to start by sanding your piece down just to get off any of that shine so that the paint will adhere to whatever you're painting. So I started off by just taking my orbital sander and sanding the entire box. Now you don't have to get everything off. It doesn't have to be perfect by any means, but you want to take off that top layer because usually it's a polyurethane or something that paint is not going to stick to. So next I'm going to paint my piece with 2 coats of the Argo by Sherwin-Williams. A while back, I bought a stencil set from Amazon, and so my idea was that I could put the stencil on the front of the bread box with white paint. Now I opted to do that instead of writing the words bread on it. I may come back and do that later, but I like how this blends into my kitchen a little bit better. So my last time going to the thrift store, I found this TV tray and it's in really great shape. It was only $3, which I thought was a great deal. There's a lot that you can do with TV trays. You can keep them the way they are and they make good little end tables. Like if you need an extra table, you can set it up. You could also change out the top to it and just use the base of the legs. Or another thing you can do is take off the base legs and then use the top for a tray or a sign. So I decided I'm gonna leave it as a TV tray and I'm gonna spray it with 2 coats of Rust-Oleum white spray paint. Next, I wanted to have like a cool kind of farmhouse stripe pattern on the top of it. So I'm going to be using some painter's tape to put my painter's tape down. And then I'm going to use a gray color that I had called Argo by Sherwin-Williams to create stripes on the front of my tray. I'll pull the painter's tape off. And that's really all there is to updating this $3 tray. I can use it as a tray. I can use it as an end table, anything I need.